He who fights monsters might take care lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze for long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote these words in his 1886 book Beyond Good and Evil, and this philosophy is at the heart of the 2018 revenge film Mandy. So join us today as we abandon our better angels and embrace our darkest impulses in this episode of Script or Screen. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of Script or Screen. Thank you for joining us again. I am one of your hosts, Zach Strackman. Joined with me, as always, on every episode is my co-host,
Chris Killington Kitchen. That is my name. That is my game.
Don't wear it out.
How are you doing today, Zach?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Dude, we've listen, I could be better. I've had a lot of things happen. We've had a pretty busy week, you and I both.
Yeah, it's been chock full.
I know. We had a fun. First of all, happy Valentine's Day.
Right?
Our Valentine's Day special going on here.
Yeah, so I mean, we're gonna try. This might come out on Valentine's Day. It might come out the day after Valentine's Day.
Yeah, sorry, this was pretty late. I was dealing with my own stuff.
Either way, love is in the air in the old Script or Screen part of the neighborhood. Zach, you and I actually enjoyed a nice little date recently with my third wheel of a girlfriend. We enjoyed a nice movie, some popcorn.
Yes, we saw Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring in 4K IMAX. I raved about it on our last episode, and
if you followed us on social media, you would have seen some photos of our little sneak peek. In our nice socially distant theater, we were like I don't want to say like 6 people in that theater.
There were maybe like 10 people in that theater.
I mean, including us 3 as well.
Yeah, exactly. You know? And so it met every expectation. Listen, I've seen Lord of the Rings more than I have seen some family members. and I, even after, having seen it so many times, it met every expectation I had for seeing it back on the big screen in IMAX and stuff. So that was a real treat. I'm going back at the end of this week to catch the other 2 in theaters. So I'm really excited about that.
Can I tell you something? I forget which seat. Oh, I remember actually which one it was. Like we just said, that movie has been out of theaters for like 20 years now, and finally go back and I'm there with you. And the moment where our little Hobbit boys are escaping the ring wraiths, in the night, I still jumped. Out of fear.
You launched into the ceiling.
I almost, dude, like it still got me, and it was almost like a perfect moment, just because like the sound and everything was just so perfect. The theater was shaking at times.
Yes, there was.
It was incredible.
The particular moment that stood out to me was when Gandalf gets real serious with Bilbo for a minute, and the whole theater shook.
Bilbo Baggins, do not take me for some cheap conjurer, or whatever he says.
Yeah, close. I mean, hey, not bad.
Listen. What's the capital city of Gondor's Minas Tirith? Actually, we should play a little game of we should play a little game of trivia when we get to our Lord of the Rings episodes.
Oh my god!
You will be our resident host, and I will have to answer all your questions as best of my ability.
That'll be fun.
I think so.
But yes, this isn't, unfortunately, this is not the Lord of the Rings podcast. That will be coming sometime this year. You have my word on that. This is, as we said, our Valentine's Day episode. And to all of our lovely listeners who are, maybe cozying up around the fire with their loved one and deciding that the best ambiance for a night together is our dulcet tones, we say thank you.
please put us on your Alexa. We're also, I mean, listen, Zach, I don't know if you heard, but we're now available on Amazon Music. I mean, some people had their Alexas tuned into, their iTunes and their iClouds and their Spotifys, but now you can just listen to us directly through your home monitoring services. Well, I don't know what you call those things. Your home assistants or whatever.
Robot butlers.
Whatever they are, please, lovely listeners, like us, follow us, share us. We are available on all your listening platforms. We're available on scriptorscreen.com, anchor.fm/scriptorscreen. You can check us out, find your favorite platform. And our pages are at scriptorscreen. That's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all the good stuff. Please enjoy us, play us throughout your households, and just annoy your neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. Annoy your neighbors. They'll learn to love us. Everyone does eventually. And speaking of love, so when I was kind of like coming up with a game plan for us for 2021, I was kind of, I would look at the calendar and say what holidays are coming up, and like obviously Valentine's Day was like one of the easy ones. Like I didn't even have to try hard for that. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll just pick some lovey-dovey rom-com movie, something easy and not too complex to cover. But as it turns out, we had our very first listener suggestion, and it was too good to pass up. The suggestion comes from my sister, actually, my sister Grace, and her husband, my brother-in-law, and they said, "Hey, Valentine's Day, you should review Mandy."
Dude, what a great suggestion! And if you would like to suggest a future project that we may be interested in, you can comment on any of the posts that you see on any of our pages. Send us messages, and we will gladly take those into consideration.
Yeah, so
it's good that your sister picked this one, because this is actually a very it was all on the top of my list already of movies I need to watch.
Yeah, I as soon as I saw the trailers for this one back in early 2018 or 2017, it was one of those things I was like, oh my god, I gotta see this, and I don't know what happened. I just never got around to seeing it.
I remember what happened. I actually can tell you exactly what happened, because at the time, this was not like a wide release film. Like this film was limited release in certain theaters, and you couldn't actually go see it in a lot of different places. Like it had a wide release, but it wasn't too big. Like I didn't see this in any AMCs or Regals or Alamo Draft Houses or anything like that. It played in very small theaters like Coral Gables Art Cinema. There's actually one in Boca Raton, like a smaller cinema that I saw as well. At least, I mean, we're talking in the South Florida locale kind of regions. Yeah. And it was always kind of a hassle to kind of just go and find tickets for these theaters and things like that, because not all these places have it available on the applications and all that, 21st century business. So it did kind of fall underneath the radar until it reached streaming services, not streaming, but like video on demand services a few months, like a lot shorter kind of turnaround than most films have, like with the theater run. Which was interesting, but still, I mean, like it did take me a while as well to sit down and actually watch it.
We call that a cult classic.
Yeah, it did. I mean, dude, it made
and
Sundance.
Hey, actually, no pun intended. No pun intended on that, because that's the subject matter of this film.
Yeah, I mean, it's listen, I don't know what you can say. I don't know. Do you remember like critical hype around this movie as it was being like promoted?
Yes. So like the one thing that stood out for me, obviously, when I first heard about this movie was, it's a crazy violent film with Nicolas Cage, and I said, well, you've already sold me. But then and then word started coming through that people were saying this is maybe Nicolas Cage's best performance ever. And I said, I guess this is maybe billed as a horror movie, even though it's not scary. But I've said it before, I don't go out of my way to see horror movies unless I hear like they are like amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
I wanted to see this that bad because people were talking up Nicolas Cage. Like, occasionally he shows his genius for acting, and then most of the other times it's just he's kind of phoning it in for a paycheck. But can you blame the man? He lost an island. He lost an island because he wasn't smart with his money, and he had to just, he had to kind of reformat how he took movie roles, which means taking every movie role available.
So when I first heard about the movie, and I heard this whole bit about Nicolas Cage, like, best performance, I'm like, wow, really? Because, I mean, a lot of people he's kind of like a meme at this point.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He's also, like, versus early in his career, I guess people took him a little more seriously. Like,
right.
I have his Rotten Tomatoes open right now, and Mandy is, let's see, from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is like his 9th top rated film on the tomato meter kind of scale. At least that has his involvement.
Yeah, he's got some outstanding performances. He's won an Academy Award, so I mean...
Yeah. Versus, like, some of the other things now, people are just like, oh, he's exaggerated, or it's just not necessarily fitting as an actor. I don't know. I feel like...
I feel like sometimes his persona...
kind of gets in the way.
Yeah, like, people go in and they expect him to be crazy, and they expect him to deliver lines in a really bizarre way and stuff, and...
I see that. But I think this movie really did play to some of his strengths as an actor.
Absolutely.
I heard a criticism about this film the other day as I was speaking to a close a friend about that I just saw this. And he said, I remember when that movie came out, I was just afraid that it was just going to be all kind of like visual spectacle just for the sake of spectacle, just like hardcore violence, like hyper light reaction, and just all this crazy detail. And I told him, like, dude, like, on the surface, maybe that's what it seems like, and there's just a lot of hype built up off of that. But
right.
I think this film has a lot more to offer in terms, like, contextually, like, what the film is saying, and then as well as, like, how they managed to do everything, like, with technique in the production itself, that you can see in other aspects of the film, like its use of editing, its use of cinematography outside of just, the lighting plans and things like that. But, like,
right.
The movements of the camera, the art direction. Honestly, I was really surprised that I liked it for all these reasons that were not something I was thinking about before. Because, I mean, I'll tell you what, the allure of the contrast of the lighting and just Nick Cage saying, like, crazy evil was just so attractive to me. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, this is awesome. But I'm also a scaredy cat, dude. I am prone to nightmares. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Like, I mean, as an adult, I still can't watch scary movies without thinking about them for years on end.
Honestly, I think that's the mark. That's the mark of a good horror movie. I feel that it makes me dwell on it long after the fact. But yeah, we here at Script or Screen are big babies, and we're not afraid to admit it. Hey, but you know what?
We're sponsored by Pampos.
Oh my god. But this wasn't that scary. It was actually really
not at all.
Friggin' awesome. As a fan of, like, really, like, hardcore, like, death metal art, I thought some of the visuals in this movie were awesome.
Are you a fan of death metal art? Like the whole like kind of swirling trees and like
album covers and stuff, if it's artistic, if it's just like crazy
blood for blood's sake.
I don't know. I like it. That's my statement. I like it.
Cool.
And this movie
enjoy some Iron Maiden. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel I dug the aesthetic of this whole film.
I did too.
But let's kind of dig in a little bit. So, Mandy is a 2018 revenge psychedelic action horror film directed by Greek-Canadian film director Panos Cosmatos.
Have you seen his one other film that he made?
Beyond the Black Rainbow? No, I have not. I've heard a lot about it. I've heard it's very stylistically similar to Mandy, but like, from all the things I've heard, it is considerably less accessible than Mandy.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, this movie only made like 50 grand in the box office, like over its like $1 million budget. But it was his first
What,
film.
Beyond the Black
Beyond the
Rainbow?
Black Rainbow. It was made,
Okay.
what, 10 years ago, 11 years ago at this point?
10, yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know how it was reviewed though in comparison. The reception, I don't think it was received as well as something like Mandy though. I think Mandy really kind of put him back on the map. Though I haven't heard of him another piece coming from him as of yet.
Right. But
Thanos.
but you know, he did the story for it, and he wrote he wrote the screenplay along with Aaron Stewart and music by the late Johan Johansson.
Rest in peace.
Yes, this film was dedicated to him.
I think we should also give a special shout out to another film great we lost that has nothing to do with this film, but like in the last week we learned about Christopher Plummer's passing.
Oh yeah, absolutely, an absolute legend that Hollywood lost. Of course, I would say most recently our audience would know him from Knives Out.
Yeah.
He was kind of the patriarch of the family, but I mean, God, where to begin about someone like Christopher Plummer? His acting is his list of works is so vast.
Yeah, he was I don't know, he was a treasure.
Yep.
But he was as by his family, and you know what? We wish them the best, and we will remember him for all of his great contributions.
Absolutely, 100%.
Now back to Mandy.
Now back to a regularly scheduled Mandy. Yeah, Johan Johansson really just brought his A game to this. You know, very interesting synthy kind of sound. Very, I don't want to say like drug induced, but very. It had that kind of that feel to it of almost like a. I don't know the word to call it.
He's kind of like I don't want to say the king of depressing music because that's not what it is. But it's like he knows how to really hyperbolize woefulness and also somberness and just all these kind of emotions into not just like synth, but also like kind of. I mean, I guess we get a lot of that kind of 80s inspiration. In this film, but in some of his earlier albums and works, funny enough, I'll give this anecdote now. When I was in film school, I used a track of his for one of my shorts, my junior year, and I spent hours looking for the right track, and it wasn't until I found his list of his body of work that I'm like, oh, dude, all these songs are perfect. I was really saddened at his passing. He actually passed away. During the time that like this film was being promoted, I think right before it came out.
Right.
I was super, super sad about that.
So, but yeah, I mean, just he had, his mark on this film is pretty great. He really, this was such a good, stitching together of so many very artistic minds. And, like, I feel like if anyone but Johan Johansson had done the score for this, it wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah. I think he definitely did leave his contribution, and it made it even better. It's a shame that this film was unable to kind of be considered for Academy nominations, because I think that the score definitely would have been considered, and he would have been up in the running, but because of a BS technicality, in my opinion, they were not unable to be eligible for that. It was because the film went to video on demand before its theater releases were finished.
Okay.
Yeah, it's super dumb.
Well, yeah, that is a little. As I understand it, the whole like award circuit, a lot of the politics there are very weird. I think who was it? I think Kevin Smith had an interesting talk about, like, in an interview about the kind of the hoops you have to jump through to get recognized by the Academy and get them to consider your picture, your actor, or whatever. But anyway, the cinematography for this was done by Benjamin Loeb, who, hey, Benjamin, I'm not too familiar with your work outside this film, but way to go, dude. Like, this movie was wild.
Yeah, it had a lot of great movements. Like I said, there's like a lot of subtle camera moves, but also, I mean, just like the lighting, the light plotting was excellent. I wanted to give another shout out to the gaffer, Dirk van Rampelberg. I think that's how you say his last name.
That does look like how you spelled it.
But I mean, because what is a great DP without his awesome gaffer and electric and grip crew? You got to give credit where credit is due, because magic happens when they all work together.
Right, and, exactly. I mean, movies don't just come out of the ether. There's a whole host of people and names attached to them that you don't really, that I feel don't always get the spotlight.
Yeah, but I think Benjamin Loeb, or Loeb, however you say his last name, he actually worked on a project that's getting a lot of praise right now. Or it praised in the last year, Pieces of a Woman, which is it was nominated for Best Performance by an Actress by Vanessa Kirby, who was on The Crown in the first 2 seasons as Margot, Princess Margot, if you will. And so it's getting up there. It's getting some nominations. It was on Netflix. But I mean, he also does a lot of work in shorts, and I think he's done some other films as well. But yeah, he's a working man. He's getting his name out there, and he's definitely involved in a lot of different type of projects. But yeah, cinematography was awesome. The lighting was fantastic. I think, like I said earlier, like that was part of the allure of this movie. That's why people wanted to go see it. They're like, what is this about?
Everybody was talking, like, the visuals in this movie. You need to see it for almost that alone. But let's see. So this movie's about 2 hours long, had a budget of $6 million, and a box office return of $1.4 million. Like you said, it kind of got a pretty limited release. And I think, part of, that limited release has led to it kind of gaining a cult status. There's people who know Mandy, people who don't. But I'm glad I have now, taken the dive to be to have seen this film and understand it, and witness its really cool aesthetic. I finished watching it and I said, man, I really wish I could have seen this on a big screen in a dark theater.
Dude, I mean, they could take my $4 rental and take those royalties, because it was well deserved. And that's the thing. I'm wondering how much this film actually made in terms of its on-demand streaming, because I know that the $6 million number doesn't, or the $1.4 million dollar number doesn't represent that part of the its revenue. So I'm really hoping it kind of gauged some sort of substantial numbers, but I'm not sure how much streaming really does in terms of all that. But yeah, it was. So I'm really glad that critics were really into it. And they rated it as well as they did. On Rotten Tomatoes right now, it stands at a 90% fresh, and the audience score is a little lower at 66%, and I think I know why. And we're gonna get into that when we discuss like the pieces of this film, because I think audiences go into something a little differently versus critics. They try to look at it more objective.
I think if you tell the average Joe citizen on the street, hey, here's a movie about Nicolas Cage being crazy and killing people, and it's really violent and stuff and wild, I think people go in with an expectation.
Yeah.
And when the movie ends up being a lot more carefully made and
expressionistic in a way,
and maybe a little bit indulgent, I think when you have all those things, I think people start going, well, wait, what? That's not what I came for.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I hope that,
Listen, I went in with that attitude. That's what the movie was going to become. And it turned out it became a movie that I liked even more because it wasn't that.
Exactly. So let's look at this cast. Obviously, we've been talking him up. Nicolas Cage as Red Miller. Nicolas Cage, what can be said about him? He is a Hollywood icon. He
is a Coppola first and foremost. I mean,
that's right.
He's one of the of the 5 Hollywood families, if you will.
The illustrious Coppola dynasty. But he actually, I one of those things I only found out now when I was doing my research for this episode that Nicolas Cage, he changed his name and he wanted a stage name and he chose Cage as his last name based off Luke Cage from Marvel Comics.
That's awesome. I like that.
Yeah.
It's like Catch Me If You Can. But that was with The Flash.
Right, yeah, with what do you call himself? Barry Allen. So we got Andrea Reisboro as Mandy Bloom, the eponymous character of the film.
I liked her makeup in this.
Yeah, she had the scar and
whatever
they were doing to her eyes.
They really made her look. How did you describe it? Like a flower girl turned metalhead.
Yeah, like kind of like she probably, this movie's set in 83, so maybe a decade before she probably would have fit in closely with the antagonists of the film, but she's, had time to live her life and has grown into a new phase of her self and her style. So
yeah,
definitely is a character that you feel has a lot of background, a lot of history.
Yeah.
We got Linus Roach as Jeremiah Sand.
You mean Thomas Nolan? Thomas Wayne from the Nolan Batman franchise?
That's right.
Have you
Papa
seen him?
Wayne himself.
Have you seen him in a lot of other works outside of
Not really.
Batman? I'm trying to think of where else I may have seen him. I have his IMDb right here just in case. And I'm not sure. He was in Homeland, the TV show, but I never watched that.
I have not seen.
I guess he was in Barry, but is this Barry as in the? No. Oh, this was Barry, the Barack Obama film or show. It's a film on Netflix. But
yeah, I mean that was the one thing I knew him from was Batman Begins.
Yeah, that's the only thing I knew him from. And this is not the only Batman Begins or Nolan Batman reference in this episode, and I'm super excited about the next one.
So, okay, we got Bill Duke as Carruthers. Bill Duke.
Did they ever mention his name in character? Like, his character's name?
Maybe, I don't know. But Bill Duke, I mean, what an awesome actor. I think the movie I know him best from is Predator. Predator, he played, what was his name? Elliot or something? Mac. And,
you mean like, Mac, how the hell are you? And then they go and slap hands, or...
No, that was Carl Weathers' character.
Can I tell you something?
Huh?
I've never seen the original Predator.
Oh my God. Dylan, you son of a bitch.
Dylan, that's what it is. Oh God, I know the meme, but it doesn't.
That's Carl Weathers.
This is actually super interesting. Apparently, he was also Trask in X-Men Last Stand.
Yes, so he was the first attempt at Boulevard Trask in the X-Men movies before they brought Boulevard Trask into like a proper antagonist role with Peter Dinklage.
Dude, I don't even remember that. That's insane.
He's in like one scene in that movie.
I think I'll tell you what. I don't know if I remember it because I don't think they have Last Stand on Disney Plus right now, and I rewatched some of the X-Men movies rather recently.
Not? Hold on.
Yeah,
investigate that.
I think if they have it, then they added it after the fact that I'd already watched them. But I watched X-Men and X2, and then I watched Days of Future Past, and then I did not. I watched First Class as well. I didn't watch.
They do not have X-Men 3.
They'll add it soon enough. Like they don't have Logan either.
I mean, we're not missing out. It's not exactly a good movie, but yeah. So I feel like that's like really it as far as like the big like notable actors in this. Everyone else, I have to admit, I'm not super familiar with. Richard Brake as the chemist.
Oh, you mean Brown Eyes in The Mandalorian season 2?
Yes, yeah. And I'm trying to think of like who else, like what else I've seen him in, but nothing really comes to mind. Oh, he was in Game of Thrones. Okay, that's right. He played. I don't think you would recognize him from Game of Thrones because he was the Night King for seasons like 4 and 5.
Before they had like the physical actor, like the guy who
basically
do all the
he
movements.
was the Night King. He was the Night King who did the thing where he lifted his arms that became a meme.
Yeah,
that was him, and then they switched to a different actor to play the Night King.
I thought they chose like the Night King stunt double to then like keep playing him after the fact.
Basically, yeah. He was like the head choreographer for the show.
Okay. Oh well, that's. I mean, honestly, Richard Brake. I like you as these creepy guys anyway. You know. Well, I mean, I guess Night King was kind of a creepy guy.
Yeah, kind of. But so yeah. I mean,
he was also in Kingsman. He was the interrogator when they were doing like the initiation for them to be in Kingsman.
Was that the one where they suck air out of the toilets?
No, well, it was like the later part where like the train was going to run over them unless they said, "What's Kingsman?"
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So super small roles, you know.
But he left his mark here. And then we could discuss like every actor who's in this movie, but like a lot of them are just. I think
those are all the main ones.
Yeah, that's the ones who really leave a mark.
The rest are just like the children of the new dawn, if you will, this cult.
So let's dig in because what I think we both kind of feel like we really liked about this movie. Obviously, we've talked about the music, we've talked about the use of color. They used a kind of like an artificial way of making it look like film grain.
Oh yeah. Actually, I almost felt like they filmed it on like 16 millimeter cameras, not quite like 35 millimeter that you see, which is I guess almost the standard, if not like digital, our IMAX format. Like 16 millimeter is a lot. It's a lot more. I don't want to say like authentic, but it's definitely like a lot more grainy, and it has that feel. I feel like a lot of these 80s horror films also kind of were shot on 16. But then I saw it, and they just used a common camera kind of in the film world, which is the Arri Alexa. And what they did is instead with the Arri Alexa, they also kind of coupled it with a Panasonic anamorphic format. And so they got like their wide images when they wanted, but then they just kind of add the grain, in the editing room and at the end. So it's a great cheat. And I was super fooled because I thought, wow, they really shot this in 16. Like that's super cool. Like, oh man, this looks really underground, really raw and everything like that. So they got me.
But hey, even if it is an artificial, like the fact that, they went for that aesthetic, I think, obviously this was a big send up to the grindhouse films of the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And it definitely had that feel. I know there's a couple of points in the movie, especially in the back half, where certain stunts and shots are made almost, I want to say, like purposefully hokey. So that way, it, to almost sell that like vintage grindhouse film feel to it. But yeah, the other thing I think we both liked is that the 3 acts of this movie are in 3 separate like named sections.
Oh, kind of. It was really interesting. I like the name of the first one, right? Like what was it? Like
the Shadow Mountains, the 1983.
Yeah, I was like, oh, they're doing like chapter separations. Like this is it. Yeah. I mean, listen, I've said it. I haven't said it on the podcast, but I'll say it now. Any film that uses chapter separation, for the most part, has always been regarded as a really great film.
Yeah.
Like
name 17 of them. Go.
Inglourious Bastards.
10 seconds. 10.
16 other Tarantino movies.
8,
there you go.
7. But yeah, so it was cool. I really like that. The other ones are The Children of the New Dawn and Mandy.
And finally, Mandy. It almost
I
feels
love
like
it.
we also get like the
our
title text and everything.
Yeah, like an hour into the movie.
I wanted to write. I had it written in my notes that are off screen. That I didn't share with you. That like, oh, very Stranger Things like, and I'm like, well, I mean, Stranger Things and this are both based off of like, just the 80s and I guess kind of 70s in general. So that's wrong. But I liked that. That was I think the how would you call it? Like the way that they use like their fonts and everything.
Yeah, it's very
nice.
Nostalgic.
Yeah, like nostalgia is sometimes good if done well, and this was a case of it being done well.
Right. But we open up on our main character, even though the movie is named after Mandy. Red is basically our protagonist. He's a logger. He like works in like a tree cutting logging company. He knows his way around a chainsaw, which will come back. That'll be important down the line. And then I wanted to note this: he is offered a beer at the beginning of the movie when he and his fellow loggers are on their way back from their job, and he turns it down. So that's an interesting thing. We start
just a small character beat,
Yes, one that will speak volumes to the change we've seen in him by the end.
So, do we want to hit these people with just a brief synopsis real quick?
Oh, that's right. Oh my God, how could I forget about our handy-dandy synopses?
It's all good. This Synopsis of Mandy, the 2018 film, comes to us brought to you by the Internet Movie Database, imdb.com. And it states, the enchanted lives of a couple in a secluded forest are brutally shattered by a nightmarish hippie cult and their demon biker henchmen, propelling a man into a spiraling, surreal rampage of vengeance.
So that is very on point. I think that's the best synopsis we've had for anything.
Here we go, guys. Air horns. It's the best one that we've ever done on the show and ever read aloud. Let me ask you something. This is kind of like the Pacific Northwest in a way. I feel like it's kind of got to be.
Yeah, I mean, the Shadow Mountains, I think that's California.
Oh, or is that like an actual place?
Shadow Mountains are in the Mojave.
Yeah, the Mojave is
Eastern California.
Yep, that makes sense.
So, okay, California, but yeah, the Pacific. Definitely, we see
San Bernardino County,
the forests there and stuff. I like how it talks about the enchanted lives of a couple. They really do have this sort of I don't know if enchanted's the word I want to use, but it feels surreal because they're like out in the middle of nowhere when when they're home.
It's like they're alternative music but personified.
they when they're sleeping they're like bathed in purples and
these kind of blues and like
red,
and it's like they always have their lava lamps on all the time, and they read just like counterculture novels and things of the sort.
The novel that Mandy is reading, which is called what is it? In the Eye. Where is it? I wrote it down here. In The Seeker in the Serpent's Eye. It's not a real book, and it's actually one of the names of the tracks by Johansson for this movie.
So my thought is, like, what did you think about like the total like art direction in this film? Because there was a lot of, there was a lot of just this. I'm trying to get to the production design. Hubert Pooley. I could be pronouncing this name wrong. Pooley. I'm not familiar with this person by name. But again, a lot of work it looks like that they've done. Nothing necessarily stands out in my brain, but I mean they've been working since the '84 till now, pretty much,
right?
On a bunch of different projects, and they really looked like they filled it with the dreams of, I don't know, maybe me when I was trying to be like a 16-year-old, 15-year-old, like I don't want to say counterculture youth, but like I was just kind of hanging out with my friends, wearing my hoodies with like my music in my ears and shit like that. And I don't know, it just kind of they're living like the dream lives of kind of people that have just separated themselves from society and just are really trying to also live off the land. But I don't say that literally, but more like just being each other's company.
They are almost like people, of the earth, sort of.
Yeah.
Mandy spends her days painting these like abstract, like fantastical pictures, very, very bizarre, like amalgamations of creatures and shapes and stuff. And it's, like I said, it's kind of reminiscent of some like album covers you might see
And
in certain genres.
I mean, and also a lot of these, I mean, moments of these characters and like these settings that were shown, they're also heightened by like the technique that they're like imploring in this film. Like they're using like a lot of neo-realism, like long takes. Like characters are discussing and exploring like introspective thoughts with each other.
Right? Yeah, the way they discuss about things, and the camera will just hold on them. It allows the performance with all of the characters' vulnerabilities to shine through.
It really does. And I mean, you pointed out to me earlier, like really like the context of what they're talking about too. It really just kind of sets the tone, and like we're put in this odd situation, which is why like, I feel like it's moments like these that people were like, what the hell is this movie?
Right.
And it's not that's not like the psychedelic horror shit that we all signed up for, but it's something I feel like, as a cinephile, about movies that like I really enjoy. Like, dude, I was not expecting that. I kind of like seeing this in films. We talked a couple episodes about David Lowery, right? He has this new movie, The Green Knight, coming out.
Oh,
but
yeah.
the movie I mentioned in that episode was A Ghost Story, right?
Okay.
Which was full of moments like this between Rooney Mara and Casey Affleck, and I mean, I was just like amazed, like, dude, like they're doing like a 5-minute long take, and it's just that's what it is. Like, that takes a lot, dude.
It's fantastic. I think it's the mark of a really good filmmaker and really good actors that they
masterful technique.
Right. And I feel like because like all of these moments are so important because it lets us know who these people are, but it builds in you, and you start to really, when shit hits the fan, not much later, you really feel for them because you've seen them kind of just living their lives. Like you see them out on the boat, you see them, you see Mandy, she works like a job at a corner store, and you get to see them exist for a while. You get to see them talk about which of the planets is their favorite, and like Red makes a comment about how Galactus is his favorite because he devours planets.
Yeah, that was your special shout out. I saw you wrote that down.
Great.
I definitely liked when Mandy was mentioning that they lived on or around Crystal Lake. I'm like, hey, Friday the 13th in there. And I love the TV that they just watched together, and just like the shit that just shows. Yeah. It's some sort of slasher film that's just right on there.
Yeah, and I mean that's another thing. Like you get to see them. They sit, they watch old movies together. I want to jump to.
Would you call them old movies if the film takes place in 1983? Was it, or 86?
True, it's true. But I do want to jump toward almost the very end of the film, because there is a moment when, after all the crazy shit has happened, we do get a flashback of when Red and Mandy first met, and it's at a crowded like biker bar, and you see Red and he sees Mandy, and the scene is shot with I think pretty natural colors, but it's the moment he sees her that suddenly the scene becomes bathed in these reds and blues or purples, these very heavy colors that we have seen for the entire film before. And it's almost like, his whole world changed when he met Mandy.
Yeah. And it's a direct reflection of that, like, which is why it's that thematically, like, those colors are so important for the rest of the film. I mean, funny enough, if you think about it also, like, in another type of metaphor. You always hear about people saying like, "Oh, when I saw your mother in the room, or when I took my first look at them, it's like everything else just faded away, and they just encapsulated me." And that is that moment, you know. And it's also, I mean, after, like you said, it's at the very end of the film that we get that realization, and I don't know, it's just such a perfect moment as well. And it brings on the big sad, Zachary. It brings on.
Because I was gonna say, what, you know, we're talking all about all this lovely stuff, this happy couple just living their idyllic life in this, you know, cabin in the woods, and you know, for our Valentine's Day episode, and it's wonderful, but we start to get these little hints that there is something malevolent out there, something out in the world that's just not right. Mandy has the dream of her walking through the woods and seeing the dead fawn.
Yeah.
And which, you know, start to get these kind of like nightmarish images that you know, you don't know what, but something is just not right in the world.
Yeah. I mean, I loved the kind of juxtaposition compared to Red's dream, where he's like, I can't remember my dream. To it,
Yeah.
and at some point I was hoping it was going to come back to us at the very end. Like, was this all just his dream? That was not the case.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, we get our introduction of our antagonists, and this.
One thing real fast. I just wanted to touch on. Actually, no, you're right, because we do get our wait, I'm trying to think. Was it before we meet them or after we meet them that we hear the story about the starlings?
I think the starling thing happens.
Is that before? Because the only thing I wanted to touch on that is, you know, over the past few days since I've seen that movie, Mandy, that I sit and I think about the things that maybe didn't make sense to me at first, and, you know, maybe are there for the interpretation. And you know, Mandy tells a story about how her father took a bunch of baby starlings that she and her friends loved to see flying around, and he beat them to death in front of her, and then made the kids join in and beat the birds to death, and she couldn't handle it. She ran away. And I find it interesting that, you know, going forward, we're going to see another character basically be given, handed the chance to engage in savagery and accept it, just, you know, without question, basically. And how it almost is you know, if Mandy survived this film, spoiler, she dies, but I feel like she wouldn't want Red to go down the path he goes down. But I feel that for, you know, if maybe the roles were reversed, Mandy would not have followed the path that Red goes down.
I want to come back to that by the end of the film.
Okay.
Because you know what, I wrote it down just now because I have a thought about that, but I think my thought will make more sense once we've kind of discussed it. So at the end of our notes, I have it written down here because I do want to.
Should I peek? Should I peek?
No. I just wrote the question there, just so that I can kind of further explain it, because I didn't write down my explanation just yet. But
Gotcha.
I mean, that is an interesting thought. Like, if the roles were reversed, how would they react, or what? I mean, what is her thought towards him doing that? So in order for us to get there,
we got to meet our people.
Exactly. We you know, the introduction of the antagonists of this film, it's like any other, which starts with a simple drive in the middle of nowhere, and dude, it's I don't know. How do we describe Jeremiah Sands and the children of the New Dawn?
Well, I wrote it here. They give off some real heavy Manson family vibes. They are a hippie cult who they follow one figurehead and they basically worship the ground he walks on.
Yeah.
Which, we see some of the interesting dynamics play out with how he treats the different members of the cult. There's the matriarch, Mother Mabel, and Mother Marlene, excuse me. And she worships him almost like a god. And
he doesn't give a shit about her.
He is very dismissive of her.
He's not giving her the time of day.
Right, but then there's Brother Swan, who I feel is much more. He's allowed to be more involved with the goings on of the cult.
Yeah.
And Jeremiah, whatever we want to call him, treats him with a lot more respect.
Yeah.
And reverence. And I think this all goes toward Jeremiah's character and how he views women. And I think this is common. If you read about some of these cults of personalities, where one person is in charge and people worship him, I feel like it's very common that you hear that these people they prey on their flock,
Yeah, it's less of like a trope. More of like it's almost like it's an actual common occurrence,
right?
From what we've seen for the most part,
Yeah, so like a lot of times I know Manson was like this. People, he would get the women of the cult to sleep with him and stuff, and he would almost like they claim ownership of these people, especially of the women. And we see that with Sand, where he views women like his property, and he views the men like extensions of his like, I don't want to say extensions of himself, but extensions of his influence.
I want to kind of go back and talk about Linus Roach or Roche. What did we agree on as pronunciation?
I think Roach.
Because you know what, like I only saw him in Batman that I can remember, and to have such a small role, and then to kind of have to see him in this situation, and this character, dude, he was kind of scary and also a dick at the same time, and I felt every necessary emotion that he put out. He was super convincing, very punchable face, this one.
And he is intimidating right up until the point that he isn't, and there is a clearly there's a line in the sand, basically, no pun intended, but
there's a couple of things that it's just like his reaction
where the veil drops and you're like, oh, you're just a pathetic dude.
Yeah, and it's it's in front of his people too. Well, I mean, yeah, we'll get to that part. But
so yeah, let's kind of break down. So they drive by Mandy, right? And they see her, and there does that one freeze frame on her face that's slightly motion blurred.
I was going to say, did you, when you watched that, did you feel like something was wrong with your TV?
Maybe for a split second, but I said
I was like, did something freeze?
I said at this point, I've already seen so much crazy shit that I'm sure it was purposeful.
There was a certain sense of experimentalism that they used in this film that I was like, all right, okay.
But he sends his people out to get her. He says, I want that woman. I want you to get her for me. And again, he doesn't talk about somebody he doesn't talk about her in terms of oh, I thought she was an interesting person, and I want to get to know her. It was I
just want her.
Yeah,
it was all pure. I mean, I would say fueled by probably lust.
Absolutely.
Or and her aura or allure or whatever you want to call it. But there was no other way around it. There's no other way to see it.
We see that they have these tools, And one of them is called the Horn of Abraxas. And they do this really interesting thing that anytime they show one of these like artifacts, there's the Horn of Abraxas, and then there's like a knife. I forget what he calls the blade that he uses later in it, but whenever they show these artifacts that the cult has, there's like this strobing green flashing light.
Yeah. Really
kind of shows like and makes it seem like it's an otherworldly thing, and it lends itself to the almost like fantastical parts of this.
I actually Googled it. So an Abraxas is a real thing. I don't know what half of these words mean on this Wikipedia page, because there's a lot of things, and there's like some...
Mom, come pick me up. I'm scared.
I mean, yeah, there's also some kind of imagery that I don't like what I'm seeing, so I don't want to go further into that. I hate shit like this, man. Like, I hate religious themed or like culture themed horrors. They are not my cup of tea at all. Let me tell you, they're like... I need to delete my search history.
Oh my god. But the Brother Swan and them, they go out and they find these people, these like what they call like demon bikers, who are called we don't know this yet in the movie, but they're called the Black Skulls. And
they don't find them. They summon them with the Horn of Abraxas.
Yeah, and that is some wild shit. The sound that the horn makes when he blows it is so creepy, but I love he goes back and they're sitting in the car. They're like, okay, we got to wait now. And it's
like the small moment where he's just fidgeting with the windows like, dude,
yeah,
you got to like cut this shit out.
It's great. It's kind of like our first touch of like humor in the movie. There
are a few moments, but it's like, it's almost like they're subtle. No, actually, no, I don't want to say they're subtle, but like they just happen at like the right times. And
it was the first moment where I was just kind of like, what the fuck? But yeah, it was funny. And then, oh my god, they show up. So I love the way that the movie, I guess I'll give it to Loeb on the cinematography on this, where as the Black Skulls are approaching, you see their headlights through the fog, and the headlights look like anguished, pained faces made of light.
Yeah.
And as they come in closer, you're like, oh, okay, they're headlights and stuff. And these guys are the most metal-looking creatures. Their names are Scratch, Scabs, and Pig.
They're on their way. I don't know if Billy, you have to blur that out if it's a name. I don't know. Maybe we'll say a fornicate pig.
Frick pig.
Frick pig. There you go. But they do look like they're on their way to a Slipknot concert. That's for sure.
So yeah, I guess the rationale that's given to Red later in the movie is that these guys just took some really bad acid and it
messed them up for good.
It messed them up for good. They love the pain, and like one of them is just covered head to toe in like metal like beams that are like all driven through his body and stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they're kind of just like a force of nature. And
what is that series of Batman comics where it's like the one that laughs and like the metal
DC
Batman
heavy metal
or whatever it is? Like it almost looks kind of like those Jokers.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really familiar with them. They look like Joker, but I guess they're Batman or I don't know what.
It's some BDSM Mad Max shit is what it is. And, God, like they give him like a glass of blood to drink, and then he's like, more blood. And he's like, nah, you got to help us out first.
Is it blood or is it the thing of acid?
Oh, maybe it was the acid.
That's
you're so right.
I thought they gave him like the jar of like the gray.
Oh my god! And that dude,
acid.
that dude like chugged all that acid.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my god, that's intense.
All right, so we should probably make this statement now, I guess, because you want to write it.
We here at Script to Screen do not condone the use of drugs.
So be safe.
If you do it, be safe. But hugs and pugs, not drugs, because drugs aren't cool.
Especially the ones that are come in like gray jars.
Don't chug a glass of acid, please.
Yeah, I don't really see. The thing is that these guys, they were like in the trailer, and they made me think this movie would be super scary. They had really, actually, you know what was a great thing? We talked about like how the film itself had like gave you like a great sense of like unease and a lot of the silence and just like it left you uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I think after we get their introduction and they're given their mission to grab Mandy or to get her rather.
Yeah, they were told, hey, go get Mandy, and then the scene where they kidnap them is some disturbing ass shit, man.
I mean, even right before, it's like we're back at Red and Mandy's house, and then Red goes outside to smoke a cigarette and just looks into like the black of the forest that he's surrounded by, and then they go back in, and he's like, maybe we should move from here.
Yeah.
I think that's at the point where that happens. Maybe it happened a little earlier. But she's like, no, I like our life here. Our life is great. And then
yeah,
in the distance, like behind their TV, you have like this great like Lost Boys vibe with like the light behind them and their silhouettes appearing through the woods. And
it's so freaky. And then like there's that strobing effect when they like again like the flashing purple when they enter the house, and we get the close-up shots of Mandy and of Red, and then they knock Red out, and
yeah, the terror
Mandy
in their
away.
eyes is something I will not forget. That is this is again where we get with the big sad of the movie.
Yeah. So they're taken to the children of the New Dawn's like forest house.
Are they their house, or are they tortured in their own home?
Was it their own home?
I thought it was at one point. I thought they just
God,
like took over
you might
their
be
house.
you might be touching on things that I didn't even catch, because I thought they got taken somewhere, but you might be absolutely right.
Why else would Red know where his favorite shirt was?
It's true. Okay, so fair enough. They are tortured in their own home. Mandy is given some heavy drugs and a wasp sting to the neck for good measure.
Yeah.
These people are insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta hand it to Jeremiah here. This is an interesting technique on his way to manipulate people into joining his cause.
Yeah, budding and aspiring cult leaders, take note.
Oh my god, like this is so weird. This was so freaky because this is the psychedelic part of this movie.
So this was probably like the most like interesting in terms of just like shot composition and stuff, where or like I don't know if it would fall under cinematography, but like the reds of not the character but the color of the lighting, it becomes so heavy and so saturated, obviously to reflect Mandy is being affected by some very intense drugs, and she's brought into the room where the rest of the children are, and Jeremiah is there, and he's got his big like weird like pointy shoulder robe, and as he's moving and stuff, his body leaves like trails in the color.
Yeah, so this is definitely I tried to think about how they did this as well. This is either something they did in camera, which is they changed either the frame rate or something to kind of, or the aperture as well, and to kind of give you like that trailing effect. Or what they did was they kind of put layers on top of each other in the edit, and just mess with the transparency, so you kind of see it like almost going kind of in, because I know they mess with that later when you kind of see like the transparency between Jeremiah's face and then Mandy's reflection, and it's all this mesmerizing pulsing almost. But
So
the trailing of the walking, like super trippy and super experimental editing here, that I think it really did sell the scene.
And of course, like you just mentioned, we get that amazing, just one of those things where you shake your head as you're watching and you're like, am I seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah, exactly.
Where it's a close-up on Mandy's face, or it's a close-up on Jeremiah's, and it slowly shifts to Mandy's face, and then it slowly shifts back. And it's one of those things that, as it's happening, you don't realize it until it's happened, and then you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. It definitely messes with your head, with your perception, and definitely puts you in that seat. of what Mandy's going through, and then Jeremiah takes his dick out.
Yeah, I mean, up until that point, I'd say like that was probably like that's what sold me on that movie is like not the lighting. I mean, some of the performances, it was just like these crazy effects, and then he whips out his penis like have sex.
He just he undoes the robe, and I'm like, how did I know it was gonna come here? And yeah, he basically says like, yeah, you're gonna worship me and stuff. He plays her some of his music, and it's like, oh, can I say, sorry, real fast for music? This movie started with a song by King Crimson, and I think that's fun.
It was fun. I really enjoyed the track.
Yeah. But going back, he undoes his robe and he's like rubbing himself as he's like, trying to indoctrinate her. And Mandy, lovely Mandy, she just starts laughing. She just starts cackling like a crazy person because it is kind of funny.
I like how even under drugs, she realized how ridiculous and how idiotic he was. Honestly, yeah. I'm glad that was that moment that we got that is like peak feminism. That is like, fuck this guy. She still has all control, and it's
she's not gonna like buy into his bullshit. And then he is just goes from having this air of like I'm in control, I am a god and stuff, to being just the most pathetic excuse for a person. He's like jerking off while he's like, shut up.
I love he does. This is the second Joker part that he does in this, the Nolan Batman. He's like, look at me,
right,
like
yeah.
But I mean, also like she's embarrassing him in front of all his
she's
all his
making
followers.
Him look like a chump.
And then he tells him like, stop looking at me, like turn away, like
yeah.
What do you want? You want people to look at you? Or you want people to not look at you, man? Come on.
And unfortunately, even though like that is an awesome moment for Mandy, it is Jeremiah. He feels like he has to like really then enforce himself basically because of that. So he has to make a power play to show his dominance, and unfortunately for Mandy, that means she is burnt to death.
Dude, this was so sad.
Oh, and I'm sorry. And he makes what's her name? Sister Lucy play Russian roulette. Another just not fun scene to watch.
Like, and I mean, they torture Red, right? They stab him. They make him watch. They chain him up.
Yeah, that was a. Ugh.
There was something a part of me that really made me want to like. One, this turned into torture porn really quick. Two, it also made me feel like, oh my god, this can't be what actually happens in this movie. Like, there's no way in hell that they're gonna commit to this. Like, and unfortunately for me, that was not the case. They did it. They really did. And I'm like, fuck, like these people are so. And I hate them.
Yeah, the Mandy being burnt alive is pretty horrible. And there's something to be said that a character dying, especially a woman dying in a movie, the focus shouldn't be on how it affects the man. But Nicolas Cage's performance here is maybe some of the best acting I've ever seen in a movie, period.
Yeah.
I've never seen a loved one burnt to death in front of me, but I have to imagine that what he's going through is about accurate in terms of how it would affect you. And I like that, the scene, there's no sound. It's just Johansson's music, but you don't need the sound. It's so powerful on just visuals alone.
Yeah. I want to get into kind of Cage's performance at this point, because I think like this part of the movie, this scene in the next scene where like he is kind of dealing with the aftermath before the big shift in the film, are probably what made me realize like I think this film really catered to Nick Cage's strengths as an actor versus some of the other work that I talked earlier. I think when I look at him and I look at some of the roles, people expect him to say things, deliver lines in such a weird way that it doesn't make sense for some of the characters, or to play a role in a way that like it's not him. Versus this film, it plays a lot into his physicality. It plays into a lot of like how emotional he can get. Both, I mean, like being the big sad boy, and also as like really every emotion capable in his body that would, I mean, how would somebody react to a situation like this? He then goes insane. But even before then, it's the instant coping that he has to deal with, where he shuts himself in the house, and then he wakes up with the realization that, like, after he's escaped his chains, that he's been beaten. His wife has been savagely murdered and in front of his eyes, and he had to witness that. And he has nothing to both douse the physical pain that he's experiencing from his wounds and the emotional pain that he's going through. And he locks himself in the bathroom to he has to clean himself, so to speak. Like, he's trying to stop his own personal bleeding while also
he's
drinking
like dulling
himself.
his pain and stuff. And
like he didn't take the beer before, but he definitely was trying to thin his blood after with whatever vodka or alcohol this was, and beat himself to a pulp, or really, I mean, also maybe even hype himself up to kind of do what he does next.
What he felt must be done. And I mean, to say like the acting here, it's strange because he is just screaming, but you feel it and you understand it so well.
It's like the tones that he's kind of giving out. It's like his veins are almost popping out of his arms, like in his rage. And this guy's in fucking underwear and like a 3/4 t-shirt, whatever, and like it's just covered in blood. And also he's in this really amazingly decorated bathroom.
Yeah, I was gonna say what I love about this is I think the first time in the movie where a scene is shot without any stylistic flourishes. It's just a single take. We see the bathroom in pretty normal lighting, and it's almost like for this scene and the next scene of the movie, who was that? I was listening to a review of this film, but they talk about how this is kind of, the movie lets us come up for air for a second.
Yeah.
And just have a few scenes where everything is relatively normal, and that grounds us for the incredible depths we are about to dive down into. But yeah, just Nicolas Cage. This scene is just pure distilled Nicolas Cage fantastic wonder.
Like when people say that this was his best performance, I want to say it's because of this like 10 minutes that we spend in that period of time.
Yeah.
And it's, I think it, I don't know if I said this about the scene earlier, but this might actually be one of my favorite scenes in the entire film.
Yeah, absolutely.
My favorite. Yeah,
absolutely. It's so raw.
And now we kind of come to a place where, okay, break's over. The film now begins.
I was going to say, I wanted to touch on two things. One is the commercial for Cheddar Goblin mac and cheese was directed by Casper Kelly, who did the short for Adult Swim called Too Many Cooks, which, if you haven't seen it, is amazing. Was one of the weirdest things for Adult Swim when it came out, and it's just fantastic. It's hilarious. And we get the first of Red's dream sequences that are heavy. They draw heavy inspiration from the animated Heavy Metal cartoon from back in the day. And so I just, wanted to call out those two things because those, I think, are really awesome. South Park, did a really funny episode where they riffed on heavy metal. And it's cool to see this movie wearing its inspirations on its sleeve.
I mean, it was an interesting kind of takeaway. Not takeaway. I didn't bring me out of the movie. I usually don't get brought out of movies or taken out. But I was like,
Right.
oh, this is an interesting sequence that we're watching here.
Yeah.
And it plays on to some of this. The film then doesn't just become this horror, also sad and also introspective piece, but it includes we start pulling into like a little more fantasy. At
Absolutely.
this point.
Oh, yes, because where we're going is
We don't need roads.
Right. As I wrote, to quote the great Anakin Skywalker, this is where the fun begins.
Yeah. So I mean, listen. We come and we finally are introduced to Bill Duke's character, Carruthers, and I mean, listen. This is where we get the iconic, just plain. Oh, what does he say? Something evil? I forget what the words. Just incredible evil.
These were bikers and gnarly psychos and crazy evil.
Crazy evil. That's what it is.
Yeah, and Carruthers helps shine some light on just who these people are. I feel like typically once you start explaining stuff, it makes things less scary. But the way he describes the Black Skulls, it's pretty freaky. He talks about gutted bodies on doorsteps, and he talks about how what you're going hunting for is rabid animals. So we know right away, like, these are dangerous people. This isn't someone you would want to mess with on your best day.
Yeah. I mean, I was afraid.
But he gets his crossbow called the Reaper, and Carruthers gives him these like specially made arrows that just rip through bone and tissue like nothing. And then
don't you like how he only gives him like 2?
Yeah, he's like, I got something for you.
Use them sparingly.
Right. He does. I mean, he makes his shots count. And then we get Red forging his fucking battle axe.
This is the Excalibur of this story. Except he doesn't have to find it. He makes it himself.
Right. He forges it. Apparently, the axe, the shape of it was meant to be based on the letter F that was used in the
Celtic Frost.
Celtic Frost, yeah. They're an extreme metal band.
I did read about that.
So it's very cool. This is kind of like his Excalibur, his Lightbringer, his badass fantasy weapon. And with once that's crafted, he is off on the hunt, and he smart man, he goes straight for the most dangerous enemies first, try to get him out of the picture, the Black Skulls. And I like it. He takes out one of them on the road and then runs his car into the guy, and the guy, I guess he kills him, but the dude destroys his car.
Right. I mean, also, not to mention, I'd like to think about it's his trusty steed, the Ford Bronco. I have my reservations about that because, honestly, what a great car. Why would you trash that car? Not like the new crap they gave us, but, that was intense. And I didn't think there'd be any coming back from that moment. I was like, okay, what, is the movie over?
Right. I would say crashing the Bronco is not the craziest thing he'll do in the rest of this movie. But he wakes up and he's like captured by the Black Skulls. I don't know which one is Pig.
I don't know the names of either of them, but like, I
think the one he kills in the living room is Pig, because he has a knife dick thing going on. But it was like when I was watching it, we started this episode in the cold open talking about Friedrich Nietzsche and like the quote from Beyond Good and Evil, about when you fight monsters, you risk becoming a monster. And, when you look into the abyss and the abyss gazes into you. And that was what I was thinking when I was watching the scene. I was like, this feels like, if you are going to take these things on, you have to become a monster. And as if to reward me for my how I was reading into the movie, Red literally kicks the Black Skull into a literal abyss.
He's lucky that they're a product of their environment, because they don't upkeep that place. And so he's like, oh, rusty pipe? I can get out of this quick and use it as a weapon. But, I mean, the rampage he goes on in this home.
What is he saying when he fights the guy? What is he going, give me where's my shit?
I don't know what's going through his head, but the only thing I can think about is just rage, and it's just like, kill all these motherfuckers around me because they deserve every piece of. I mean, and he was given the warnings too, like, you know, you're walking into, you know, you don't have a large possibility, a percentage chance of survival.
You're probably gonna die if you do this.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, at this point, what else does he have? But so he oh my god, he fights the guy in the living room, cuts his throat open, and the blood just starts spewing on his face. Listen, I love it when, you know, if the movie has earned it, when a movie just cuts loose and is like, we're gonna do every twisted, weird thing we can think of because we've earned it. I'm on board, and I get so like just happy with what I'm watching. So when he was fighting these dudes, I was like, oh yes, come on, like, do the weird, absurd thing.
I mean, well, the weirdest part about this whole thing is after he got rid of the first two guys in the house, he's like, oh, they have cocaine here? Why not? That'll help me out.
And
with
he
my
doesn't
reflexes.
do a bump. He doesn't do a bump. He doesn't do a line. He takes like a big sheet of glass and just, you know, snorts a small hill of cocaine.
And then, not to mention that he finds the infamous mason jar of the gray acid, and he's like, let's do some of this too. Why not? You know, and that's crazy. He goes from like we said before, he goes from the guy that, you know, he doesn't want the alcohol. He's like,
exactly.
Fine, but he's like, no, all my vices are going to help me. They will give me strength right now in these moments.
It's like I always think of Wolf of Wall Street, when Jonah Hill's character is choking and
they need to take the cocaine in order for him
they
to
need to do the in order to give him like a Heimlich or whatever, and the Popeye music starts playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he basically burns out, I feel like, his identity, his true self with the acid, because we see like the shot of like his interior self melting away.
Yeah.
And
again with the psychedelic imagery here.
Yeah. So when that happens, he has only one other person left in the Black Skulls, who's like out just sitting by a burning car, and he shoots him through the neck with one of those arrows, and props to the dude, he just tanks it.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't know what a holy creature could survive something like that, but, you know, why not? But I think it just ends kind of even better, like after they kind of do their little fight of their back and forth.
Oh my god, when he cut the dude's head off, and like the dude's like, you know, the guy's already caught on fire, and he cuts his head off, and he finds the cigarette, but it's not lit. I'm like, oh my god, please just light it with his burning head, please. And he did it, and I was so happy. Yeah. Which is weird to say. That is a very weird thing to say, but this is what the movie does to you, is you watch it and you're like, yes.
I gotta say, it was there's these small fan satisfactory moments that we get, and now that was one of them. I loved in your notes. It's like after every awesome moment, you're like, that's fucking awesome. Yeah. That's great. Dude, did you see this? Like, I saw it, buddy. I saw it. I enjoyed it.
I loved it. The back half of this movie, I was so on board for it, and because the first half, if we didn't have that first half where we really get to know these characters and really get to feel them and see who they are and see the horrible things that they're put through and really grow to hate the Black Skulls and the Children of the New Dawn, if we didn't have that, this back half would be meaningless. But we got it, and the movie is, it knows that is a catharsis, that there is a release that you get when you when you see these things happen.
Yeah. That's kind of weird because our next kind of, I guess, the way that the film kind of does this little trajectory, I don't know why we went to the next scene, where he visited the chemist and I forget, is there a reason that he went there?
I guess he's following the trail. So the chemist works with the children. He gives them the acid. They give it to the Black Skulls. So the chemist will know where the children are.
But
so
he
goes
didn't
there.
Tell him exactly, did he? He just read his energy or whatever the fuck he said.
Listen, at this point it's so fantastical that it's whatever. I just kind of wrote it off. I thought it was funny. But yeah, the guy's like, "Oh, you want me to let the tiger go?" And he lets him go. Apparently, at one point, Lizzie the tiger was actually a lizard, and then one day during when what's the actor's name?
Is this the one that plays the chemist?
Yeah, Richard Brake. He said one day he came in and Cosmatos was like, "Oh, actually, it's a tiger."
So, oh, okay. That's fine.
But it led to one of my favorite shots in the film. So he learns from the chemist that the children of the New Dawn are north, just a very vague direction. Head north, you'll find them.
Yeah.
I love his line where he says, "You exude a cosmic darkness," and
then it's like you see all the bugs and worms at his feet.
Yeah,
that.
Well, there's something to be said that everything that Red is doing is kind of his apotheosis into a god.
Yeah.
But I love the shot right after where it's the tiger against a full moon and everything's bathed in red and the tiger just roars in slow motion. And I'm just I love the metal fantasy imagery that this movie is chocked full of.
Yeah, they really know how to play on all the surreal aspect and just really kind of make you feel how awesome this entire experience is. This is the awesome half of the movie. The first half is for the film lovers. The second half is for all you awesome people out there.
Red, he tracks the children down. He uses the caltrops to get to Brother Swan and Sister Lucy. Brother Swan, that death, ugh, when he's got the end of the battle axe in his mouth.
I liked it.
And the guy's trying to
I wanted that axe to be used so much more than I think it was. Though right. I think it had some off-screen use too, now that I think about it.
But I love when it definitely did. But he says something oh, the darker the whore, the brighter the flame. And then
oh my God.
Red applies a bit more pressure and just kills the dude. He lets Lucy go, and I thought that he did that because he saw that she was being treated like a tool, basically.
Hot garbage. I mean, it was after you pointed it out to me. I didn't realize that the whole Russian roulette moment that she was included in earlier. She had that hesitant look on her, oh shit, he wants me to do this. I don't really want to, but I guess I will.
Right.
I didn't even realize. I thought he maybe let her go because I don't know. Maybe she reminded him of Mandy or something like that. She's oh, no, she's young.
I think he recognized her as just as much of a victim.
Okay, so I mean, listen. I hope she realizes what a privilege that was versus the fate that the rest of her esteemed cult met.
Right. We'll find out in Mandy 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, but I that would be interesting if there was a second one.
You never know.
A prequel, if you will, an animated spinoff.
Oh God. So Red goes after he's going after the cult. He kills the window guy. The guy who's playing with the car window, and that's the shot I was talking about where he throws the axe and you see it spinning through the air, and it really looks like something out of a crappy 80s schlock film.
I think I saw something like that in Friday the 13th. I honestly think I did.
but the axe like embeds in the dude's head, and you see blood just spray everywhere. And then
we get like the beautiful silhouette of that too.
Yeah, and then we get to another part where I was just, the
who's got the bigger chainsaw?
Well, they show Klopik, the brother Klopik, and they have an establishing shot that shows that there's a chainsaw there, and Red grabs it, and and as he's approaching Klopik, and he's like, pulling the ripcord and trying to get the chainsaw going, and Klopik bends down, and I'm like, oh my god, please pull out a chainsaw and have a chainsaw fight. And the second he did, I was like, yes!
And it was a bigger one, too. It was definitely, like, also a fight for masculinity here. Or,
right.
like, toxic male, whatever you want to call it. And very Gears of War-esque, too. They were kind of going at it. I don't know if you're familiar with Gears of War, but they have, like, the chainsaw guns.
Yeah, I think they call it the Lancer.
The Lancer. Oh, man, what a tool. What a tool.
But yeah, Red, being a logger by profession, he knows his way around a chainsaw and is obviously, the better chainsaw fighter.
I was going to say the better chainsawman.
Right, exactly.
He's the better sawman.
But then I didn't know that this movie was going to go even more Nicolas Cage than it already was, because he loses the chainsaw and Klopik's coming at him, and he takes a chain, just a literal heavy chain, and starts whipping it around his head. And I said, is Ghost Rider? It is Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider, and he whips it.
And now people know why we titled the name of the episode Mandy, The Spirit of Vengeance.
Yeah, that's right. I saw it. I said I have the title already in my head, but God, he grabs the guy around the neck and he pulls him into the chainsaw that's laying on the ground, and just loved it.
We really did get the third installment in the Ghost Rider trilogy, guys. How great!
It was a surprise sequel.
It was a sleeper trequel, or sequel, whatever you want to call it.
Trilogy.
Yeah, there you go. That's dude. Don't you just love when a plan comes together?
Exactly. And then he heads into this like very auspicious triangular crucifix adorned church.
Thanks to one Ari Aster.
I guess most
I guess which one did it first? Ari Aster in Midsummer
when did
or this
Midsommar
film?
Come out?
I think so.
I like to correct myself. So Mandy came out first, but
there you go.
I said crucifix. With the church, all churches have crucifixes on them, but so I love. He goes down. He starts heading in deep. I think he takes a second to kind of like read their scripture, but he goes down, and Mother Marlene attempts to seduce him, which I'm like, she's like, I was always told I was the most sensual and stuff, but Red isn't interested.
Yeah, she's like the first person to try mental tactics on like a loose cannon right now, and I just can't help think like, well, if funny enough, Jeremiah didn't see it, but if it wasn't going to work the first time, it definitely wasn't going to work the second time.
I like to imagine, we don't see it because it cuts away from it, but I'd like to imagine that Red sat her down and was like, I'm sorry, I'm too hopped up on cocaine and bad acid to accept your request, but yeah, he doesn't.
You offer me head and I'll take it.
Exactly, he gets a little head, and
he ends up throwing her head at the feet of Jeremiah.
When Jeremiah sees it and he screams, like he's like, "Oh shit!" I'm just like, "Yeah, dude, what did you think was gonna happen?"
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Like, I know that the axe got more use than what we saw, but if there was a moment that I want to see like that axe do some really badass shit, like that would have probably been a great moment.
Yeah, it just and then Jeremiah tries to talk him down. I don't know who the hell he's fooling. He tries to say some spiritual shit, but it is, there's no reasoning with him at that point. And I love the line that Red delivers here, where he is he's like moving in on Jeremiah, and he says, "A psychotic drowns where the mystic swims. You're drowning, I'm swimming.
Oh man, that's the role reversal right there. There they go.
So,
He's finally engaged with Zorp. He is butthole.
yes.
I mean, I think, it's funny. I do want to talk about the parallel between I don't want to call her Mabel. God, what was her name again? We just said it.
Oh, Marlene.
Marlene, but then Jeremiah kind of gets on his knees like, "I'll suck your dick, man." Like, dude.
And then
I get Linus Roach. Great dude. Like, he really played that part to the best of his ability, and
absolutely.
I think he had. If he doesn't get more roles because of this, of like creepy weird guy, because he could play it, and I really liked it.
Yeah, he did a really great job, and then Red goes all Gregor Clegane on him and crushes his head with his bare hands.
That was kind of awesome. That was pretty awesome.
And like
I appreciated that.
The children of the New Dawn are no more, and Red sets fire to the big triangle building again, kind of like Midsummer. It ends with a big triangular building up in flames, and as Red drives away, he has this flashback to Mandy, and he hallucinates Mandy in the car with him, and the look on his face is like he's gone. Red is no longer there. This is a monster that's been left behind.
Yeah. Like, I guess we get like that one soft moment where it's like he sees Mandy sitting next to him and on his drive home, if you will, I guess home, and then we get that creepy
wherever.
Yeah, I don't know where, but we get that smile. Yeah, and I guess this brings me to like my final thoughts of the film, and going back to that original question that you posed in a way, like, with Nick Cage engaging in savagery, like how would Mandy feel about it, or what the role reversal would have looked like, because she might have not taken the same route he did. This film left me utterly surprised, but also with an overwhelmingly sense of like just sadness. This was such a sad tale. Like, it was awesome and it's spectacle, and yeah, it was really badass in the second half of the film. Like,
well, yeah, of course, it's you hate to see someone go through this like self-destructive
exactly
rampage that like, and, they're not gonna come out of it okay.
He was broken to his core, and he was left but a shell of a man, and he was much different. And I love that the quote that you kind of used for this, and that you brought to us from our boy Friedrich, if you will,
right?
Because he is a monster now, like, yep. and the film does not ask any further question. It's answered that like Red is happy, kind of, that he's finished his quest. It is over, and there's not left. There's nothing to ponder at the end, except for the audience like me. Like, I'm just left with thinking like, dude, what will he do now? Like, what? Like, yep. and the film has engaged me to think that way. Like, what is he supposed to do at this point? And like, how would Mandy feel like about that? Like, she wouldn't want. I don't think she would have liked how this would have ended in that way. Like, that he has become the man that she. That maybe that I don't know that
she might not recognize him.
Yeah, dude.
When if she were to ever see him again, but like all he has now is his like memory of her, and we see that it ends with this like look on the landscape that has now become warped and into like almost a fantasy world with like planets in the skies and stuff. Yeah. And these spiky mountain peaks and stuff, and
that's our fantasy right there.
The world of logic and reason and reality are gone, and all that's left is this monster in his own like world of delusions. And it's like you said, like it's sad, but it's like, if a person meant that much to you, would you be willing to destroy yourself to get them justice?
Dude, that's the thing. Like, that is the ability to what is the word or the phrase I'm looking for, like to not give in, or not to not give in. I can't think of the phrase right now, and I love, like, to be undeniably changed, or rather to be changed, like to set forth with that ideal. Like this movie is where art and introspection meets, like, fucking awesome. I mean, I don't know what else. That's why I really like this movie. I really like that we did this and had this experience of watching this.
100%.
I waited long to watch it. You waited a while to watch it, and I think, it sucks that we didn't get to see this in theaters. But this movie meant so much more to me than what I feel like people were hyping it up for, and it's because of all these reasons that we just talked about, like all these kind of smaller, nuanced moments and things like this, and the way it made me feel after the fact. I always love the way, if a movie makes me fucking contemplate it after it's finished, like I talked about The Lobster, how you say it's just funny. I'm like, dude, that movie made me just think a lot after I saw it. Like, oh man, this did the same thing. It was just a really successful piece of art and film. I don't know, dude. I
totally agree.
I'd recommend it to everybody listening.
Yeah, if you haven't had a chance to watch it, it's a great film. I can't wait to see the next film by oh God, what?
You need help me pronounce his name? Yeah.
So
Panos Cosmatos.
So yeah, that is our Valentine's Day.
I forget why this is so relevant around Valentine's Day.
Because it's about a loving couple that are together, and the lengths that someone would go for someone that they love.
Dude, would you go the lengths for Rosie, the golden girl herself?
If someone killed my dog, they best be ready.
Would you go like on a John Wick rampage? Actually, no. John Wick. It's a great parallel to this film. So now that I think about it, like, dude.
Yes, if someone killed my dog, I would go full John Wick mode.
Yeah, I think I would too. I honestly, like, I would disregard all law, all rule, any codes. I would be but a shell of a man.
So, well, with that, with that fun sentiment out of the way, I think we're gonna wrap it up for this episode of Script or Screen.
Happy Valentine's Day to the lovely listeners, or we hope you had a happy Valentine's Day. We know we did.
Probably.
And if you like this episode, be sure to share it with your friends on all your favorite social medias. We're at Script or Screen on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. You can go to scriptorscreen.com or anchor.fm/scriptorscreen to find us on all your favorite audio listening platforms.
Yeah, make sure you comment and share with everybody. Comment, tell us what you want to see. Tell us about your favorite movies, your favorite Nicolas Cage performances, and suggest what you'd like to hear us talk about in future films.
Remember, Mandy was
future episodes.
There you go. Mandy was a fan-recommended episode, and maybe your fan recommendation can make it to air next time. That is all, everybody. My name is Christopher Kitchen. That has been Zach Strackman. We will see you next time.
Bye.